Hi, I'm your host, Justine Oxsoy, and this is the Pleasurehood Podcast, a podcast where we explore what it means to be a mother, a leader, and an all-around badass from a place of pleasure, empowerment, and turn on. I am here to revolutionize how humans experience sex, pleasure, and motherhood by normalizing self-care, normalizing mothers having desires, and normalizing mothers as sensual and sexual beings. Quick side note, you don't have to be a mother in order to listen to this podcast. Though I create my work with mothers in mind, this conversation is truly for everyone. I believe that pleasure is one of many paths of healing, and I'm here to highlight how to walk that path, no matter who you are. It is my deepest desire that wherever you find yourself on this amazing journey we call life, you can experience your power, your turn on, and of course, orgasmic pleasure. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Pleasurehood Podcast. I am so excited to dive into a few things with you, a little musing that I've been thinking about for the past few weeks. And what that musing is my exploration of pleasure and power and how the two of them intersect and create this really delicious elixir of life force energy. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, as you know, I love pleasure and its capability to expand our energy, the sensations that we feel in our bodies, the emotions that we experience, and it really allows us to experience the full spectrum of life from a place of openness, spaciousness, and in my case, a lot of curiosity. Because remember, pleasure, at least my definition of pleasure, is when we bring play and presence together. So when we bring play and presence together, I believe it creates magic, especially when we bring these two together and practice them together in our everyday lives. How often do you just kind of find yourself habitually doing things? And how could those things change, such as cleaning the house, doing dishes and laundry? How could those things kind of change and up-level by bringing a lot more play and presence into your experience? And I've been studying power and what power really is, because as I will speak to in this episode, what we see as power often is white, cisgender men who either have a shit ton of money, starting wars, monopolizing shit, engaging in some really unhealthy capitalism. And we see that and we associate that with power. I know I did for a very long time, thinking like, well, if that's what power looks like, then I want nothing to do with power. But there was still something inside of me that knew that power was essential to how I operate in this world. That I needed a sense of power, especially personal power, in order to really navigate life in general. And so I decided to really look into what power means to me and what power really is, especially from like a spiritual space and a personal development space too. And what I came to find when it comes to power is that power is really connected to your life force energy, to the energetics of your body. It's something that is alchemizing within you, not something that's outside of you. To me, that's part of the illusion, that power is outside of us, but the real power is within us. So I have found when I have put pleasure and power together, something really beautiful happens. And I create space for me to be more of myself, to be authentic in my expression, and have a relationship with my integrity. Because pleasure and power requires integrity, authenticity, and your full self-expression. So we're going to explore that in today's episode. And yeah, I can't wait to see what you think about it. If you're listening to this on YouTube, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Are you vibing with this? Not vibing with this? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What has been your experience with pleasure and power? How have you alchemized this into magic in your life? Or is this something that's a new concept to you and you desire to go a little deeper? I want to hear from you. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, I encourage you to head over to my Instagram. Send me a DM. I want to hear what your experience of this conversation is. I am at Justine Oxoy, and permission to an invitation to connect with me because I want to hear what's coming up for you. So enjoy, and yeah, let's get into it. I used to think of power as this outer force that happened outside of me or even to me. But I'm beginning to realize that it's an energy that operates within. When I give my power away, I am actually giving my life force away. I believe personally that pleasure and power go hand in hand because when you're in your pleasure, you cannot help but be in your power. And I feel like this relationship between pleasure and power looks different for everyone. For me, my relationship to pleasure and power is forever changing, growing, expanding, and contracting, depending on what season I'm in my life. With each life cycle, my relationship to both transforms, which reveals more and more of who I am. Without pleasure or power, I honestly wouldn't feel the ebb and flow, the weaving in and out of all the different flavors of pleasure or even power. And I do believe that each have a different flavor and flow to them throughout your life. And if you want to go on a micro level throughout your day, think of it this way. When you feel the most powerful in your day, what are you doing? Who are you with? What environment are you in? What does your surroundings look like? You don't always have access to your power throughout your day. It comes in, it comes out. You might have a moment where you lose your power in a situation. Let's say it could be as small as someone cuts you in line at the grocery store and you react to it in a way that causes you to lose power. And how do you lose power? In my experience, whenever I can feel the power draining out of me in a situation, it's usually when I do something that causes me to experience shame or guilt afterwards. Anything that causes me to contract or causes me to feel less of myself, like the core of myself, is when I am no longer in right relationship with my inner power. And in that situation, I have willingly given my energy and my life force away. Now, don't get me wrong. There are situations where I am perfectly fine with that energy being given away because I'm angry, I am frustrated, and a lot of times that situation that angered me or frustrated me will stick with me for days, weeks, sometimes years. And there is a point sometimes where I have to say, okay, Casey, how long are you going to allow this situation to hold your energy, your time? How long are you going to allow this situation to live in your head, your mind, your energy rent free? And those are times when I have to sit down and be like, oh, okay, I really need to sit down and forgive myself, sometimes forgive someone else. And in that act of forgiveness, I call my energy, my life force, my power back to me. And I get to get back into right relationship with it, which allows me to create an even deeper relationship to power. Same thing with pleasure. There are situations throughout my day, throughout my week, throughout my year that allow me to experience pleasure on this deep, fundamental, bodily experience. And then there's times where pleasure feels honestly a little vapid. It feels shallow. It feels like I'm giving myself permission to do things that I actually shouldn't be doing. Like, for example, I love sugar. If you know me, you know that I love sugar down to my core. And sometimes I will use pleasure to indulge in a sugary treat when I know that I should stay away from the candy, right? And so these are situations where we get to really understand what our relationship is to pleasure, to power, how they interconnect, how they work together, how they are constantly giving us opportunities to grow within ourselves and to really understand where we currently are in our life and how pleasure plays a role in our everyday lives and how power plays a huge role in our everyday lives. I feel like I would be stuck in a cycle that would no longer serve me or take me to the next evolution of my being if I didn't allow pleasure and power to have my own experience with pleasure and power that doesn't feel constricted to me just always doing the right thing. Because there are times where, like I said, I'm okay with after I have a situation, I realize I lost energy, time, which is a huge part of my personal power. And I'm like, okay, what's the lesson? And maybe I don't get the lesson for a while, and that's okay. I know personally, this is a discovery I made when I became a mom. I thought my relationship, particularly with pleasure, had come to an end. And honestly, if I really think about it, with power too, because honestly, if I wasn't like in a relationship with pleasure, I feel that I wouldn't be able to fully access my personal power, my personal agency, and my sovereignty, which is a part of my personal power, because someone else needs me constantly and needs me to survive, not just, oh, they need me. Like, he needed me to survive. And I was so afraid that becoming a mom would take away from my opportunity to make choices for myself. And what I found is that it was really only the beginning. It was the beginning of a really beautiful relationship. And I realized recently that in the past 7 years, I have really spent a lot of my time picking up disregarded, abandoned pieces of myself that were long forgotten. And as I begin to put the pieces back together, I have begun to paint a more full picture of who I am. And I'm stepping into the full spectrum of who I want to be and who I'm becoming at my core. And every day I collect new pieces and I place them in their rightful place, and the picture becomes clearer and clearer. But it's not just a picture I am piecing together, but a roadmap of self to better understand not where I've been, but where I'm going. And this process has led me to a deeper understanding of my pleasure, of my relationship with power. And it's a process that has taken me out of my head and has led me more into my body. You see, so many of us have been operating off of other people's roadmaps, people from the past, situations from the past, and also the present. And we hope that by operating off of someone else's roadmap, that it will provide clarity to our lives and make sense of everything that we're experiencing or have gone through. And we hope that by breathing life into other people, other situations, that we will feel a little less lost. So we breathe life into our partners, our children, our jobs, causes we deeply believe in, thinking that they are a whole picture, when in fact, they are just a piece. We place power and authority of our being outside of ourselves, and in the process, giving our life force away. And as we do, our power and self-esteem becomes wrapped up in who we are and what we do instead of who we are being. And once we have that realization of just how much energy we have placed outside of ourselves in hopes that this thing, person, or cause can give us a glimpse into or tell us who we are, we may come to realize the version of ourselves we've created, the one staring back at us in the mirror, isn't necessarily one that is a true reflection of who we are. And coming to this realization can feel very lonely and very isolating. But it is also just the beginning of creating a true path of healing and collecting all the fragmented pieces calling back all the power that you have given away. Allowing pleasure to create space for you to call these pieces back so you can begin to put the puzzle back together and see the full picture of who you are. And once you begin to see the full picture of who you are, even if you just see a piece of who you are and you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I remember this. Or, oh my gosh, I am capable of so much. I am possible. I can create. Look at who I am, really, truly. You can begin to just see how beautiful you are. And as you put the pieces back together and create this roadmap of where you desire to go, where you desire to be, who you desire to become, life, everything that you've ever gone through begins to get clearer and clearer and clearer. And that, my friend, understanding the whole of you at your core is the most powerful thing, the most loving thing you can do for yourself. You can walk through this world with more ease, more grace, more flow, and with a sense of sovereignty, and more importantly, power. Thank you for joining another episode of the Pleasurehood Podcast. Catch new episodes every other Tuesday on Spotify, YouTube, and of course, Apple Podcasts. If you're an Apple Podcast user and love the stories, practices, and nuggets of wisdom I share, you can show your support by leaving a review. For more of my musings on pleasure, motherhood, and of course, sex, head over to Instagram and follow me at Justine Oxsoy or pleasure.hood. And if you're ready to take your pleasurehood game to the next level, sign up for my newsletter where you'll receive words of love, encouragement, and support as you take your pleasure practice a little deeper. That's all for now, Radiant Ones. I cannot wait to go deeper with you on this path we call pleasure. Until next time, stay wild, sexy, and free.